Hi, everyone. I have a wonderful guest with us today, and her name is Mary Kay Garrett. And Mary's mission as a parent coach is to support parents to create deep, meaningful connections with their kids, fostering an environment where kids grow up confident, compassionate, and truly understanding the value of connection. Mary guides parents in letting go of the cycles of guilt and frustration, empowering them to lead with love and confidence. It's all about raising kids who are emotionally strong and genuinely connected to themselves and others. And this is so needed because we do not get a manual on how to do any of this
Yeah.
stuff as a parent. And even though I felt like I did a fairly good job, I would have loved to have had someone that could have been walking me through this to make sure that I was and just maybe trying to get me back on track. So, Mary Kay, thank you for being with us today. And I don't know if that bio was everything that you would want people to know. If there's anything else you want us to know, please let us know.
Well, just I am a parent. I have 3 kids. They're all now adults. When I went through my own process with this and realizing my kids were very young and then into teenage years. So, I love just a quick on how everything got started.
Mm.
I was a very type A parent at one point, very controlling. And what ended up happening is we were on back 20 years ago, we were on a beach vacation. And I found myself in the middle of the living room raging at my kids. And I'm like, we're on vacation. The stress is supposed to go away. And in that moment, it just hit me. I hated the person raising my kids, and that person was me.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it my line in the sand moment because I literally went down to the beach and I drew a line in the sand and I stepped across that line and said, from this moment on, I will only treat my kids with compassion, love, and respect.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of my transformation. Firstly, to have that relationship with my kids and be open to not even knowing what that was going to look like, but that compassion, love, and respect is what I wanted in our household, no matter what.
Mm.
So from that, I went, did my own work, worked with a coach for quite a long time, then decided that I wanted to go work with other parents. Or actually, at that point, I was working with C suite executives.
Mm.
And what I found in those interactions was most of the time, what was happening is if things weren't settled at home, that's what the conversations were to get them back on track at work anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 2019, 2020. Yeah, I think right around 2019, my kids started coming to me going, Mom, you really need to help my parents' friend or my friend's parents. They need you. They are crazy and they're not listening to them. And their relationships are terrible and they want better relationships, but their parents just are in another world. And
Mm.
so that is when I started working, going more into the parenting space. So, where I could support and have parents realize that this isn't a one way thing. Parenting is not one way, it's both ways. And that not only are they learning from us, but they are our teachers more than anything. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've really learned from my kids, that they are absolutely my teacher and have been so much part of my transformation as I have with their transformations of
Mm-hmm.
themselves.
I love that. Now, how does a parent's outlook affect their teen's behavior? How does that work together?
So, what the process I use is very much connected to energy.
Mm.
So, and what I energy. So, if your mindset as a parent is in a gosh, I have no choice, nothing's going right, everything is a mess, I can't do anything, then your kids are going to pick up on that.
Mhm.
We're their role models. And so if that's how you're going around in your day, that's how your kids are going to show up. So they're going to have less confidence. They're not going to know how to handle conflict. And as you get up, the levels that I work with are that's the first level is what I call the overwhelmed parent,
Mhm.
which is in that kind of just nothing's going right. The second level is what I call the authoritarian parent. They're the parents that have to have control.
Mm.
And everything they do is, whether it's blaming or you didn't do that right. And so when they're in that and they're still their kids, they're not building confidence, they're not being empowered because everything's being done for them.
Mhm.
So, and then the next level is what I call the good enough parent. And this is the people pleaser, sticky sweet parent where they're aware enough to know that these things and transformation is important, but they're not letting go of their control.
Mm.
So they really want to, everything that they do is to still manipulate so things work out for them. Like they
Mm.
don't handle conflict really well. I had a few years back, I had something with my kids where my daughter had come in from, she had been living in Europe and she came in for a week or two, and her and my son were just at it. And so, what I did to try to calm the situation, not have the conflict, I told him, I'm like, just play it cool. She'll be gone in a couple days.
Mhm.
Just, and what ended up happening the last day, they both realized what was happening and that I was keeping them from this conflict. And the entire thing blew up and they didn't talk for a year
Oh.
because I got in the way. Because I
Mhm.
wanted the conflict, and instead of being natural and letting it all happen and letting them learn how conflict isn't bad, conflict is just working out emotions.
Mhm.
So that is, my favorite.
Mm.
But this is fail, my parenting fail. It's my best parenting fail.
Mhm.
Everything's better now. But then the next level is the nurturing parent, where you really have everybody's best interest. The challenge with that one is that they are doing everything and they may get exhausted. And when they
Mhm.
get exhausted, it's the parent goes down to, wow, I do everything around here and nobody cares. I don't ever get a
Mhm.
thank you. So
Mhm.
that's even a level. The where you want to be with your parenting is you want to be an empowered parent, that highest level where you are in that give and take. You are creating opportunities for them to learn and grow. And then instead of giving advice or telling them what they have to do, you work together so they do learn that whole problem solving. They learn that conflict is just getting emotions out and looking at other people's perspectives.
Mhm. I love that. Well, if a parent is listening to this and they realized that they're not the empowered parent, but they're one of those others, how do they go about changing that to become more as of an empowered parent?
It's really looking at those situations when you can understand, when you have those, when you're like, am I feeling like I don't have choice? The first step in all of this, in all of transformation, is really having that awareness and
Mhm.
saying, okay, I see that I'm here. What steps can I take out? And the first two levels, when you're in that or the authoritarian, it's the first thing you want to do is you want to take action in some form or fashion. Even if you're in that lower level, getting out of the situation, taking a walk outside, you know, doing something that's stepping away. Another thing is, and I will say this all does take a lot of practice, but
Mhm.
even in having a conversation and saying, to your kid, your child or your spouse, saying, this is how I'm feeling right now.
Mhm.
It's not great. I'm not sure why I'm here, but I am here. And
Mhm.
I want you to know. So one of my biggest things with my clients is hold yourself accountable for where you are. It's okay if you're feeling down and you're having a really bad day. Don't bring other people into it though. I'm
Mhm.
having a bad day, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to go yell at my kids.
Mhm.
And what I'll do if I'm in that space, I'm like, guys, I'm really in this low place. And even just acknowledging it shifts.
Mhm.
If I yell at you, if I do something like that, it's not you. It just
Mhm.
really is not you. So just to let you know, this is where I am. I'm going to work with it and I'm going to move forward. Or if
Mhm.
you're blaming, wait a minute, no, that's on me. I take responsibility for
Mhm.
it. So, letting them know what, excuse me,
Mhm.
one of my favorite sayings, if not the, is what people say is about them. What
Mhm.
you hear is about you.
Mhm. I love that. That's so perfect.
So when you're
Mhm.
in a conversation or you're in a conflict with somebody, say, wait a minute, what they're telling me is it's it's not me. If I, said to you, wow, you know what? You are, I'm gonna use it, you're an axe murderer, Cynthia.
Mhm. Mm.
You're smiling. It's not something you believe. But with
Right.
parents, the one, if I say, you know what, you're a really bad mom,
Mm. Oh,
is that
yeah,
if
that's
you
painful.
believe it yourself, so what are you hearing? Are you
Mhm.
hearing, I'm an axe murderer? Yeah, right. I'm a
Mhm.
bad mom. If you're believing it, that's what you get to work on. So if your
Mhm.
kids are in an argument with you and they're saying, "Mom, I hate you," where is it that you believe it? And it's like, wait a minute, no, I am not. And
Mhm.
having that reinforcement and saying that's not true, because what that does is it takes you to a neutral space to say, to then look back and say, okay, what's in their world that they're saying these things? What's
Mhm.
what happened at school today? Did they, is a bad test? Did they have a run-in with something? Were they just having a tired day?
Mhm.
And then digging in, because so much of the time when we go into conflict, it's all about, well, they're upsetting me, they're calling me names, they're doing this. Where if we just took the time to say, wait a minute, let's just stop for a minute, what's really going on in your world? I
Mhm.
just want to know. You can be screaming and yell at me, I want to know what's going on in your world, because this isn't like you.
Mhm.
Something's there. And so instead of taking it all personally as a parent, when we interact with our kids, that it means something, dig in, because it's probably something that happened to them within really the last 24 hours.
Mhm. Oh, I love that so much. When you were talking about, being honest with your kids about, "I'm not in a good place right now," or, if I'm, having a hard time dealing with things right now. I used to have really bad PMS, and during that time, and it wasn't every month, but a lot of months, I could tell this, like, irrational anger, like, weird
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I would just sit around and just be so angry about nothing. And so I would always tell my kids, this week I'm probably going to say some really weird stuff. And so I want you to ignore me because I knew that something was going to be said that because I would just be so mad and like feel like I was out of control. And I didn't want them to take anything personally. And I feel like it helped because then they were like, oh, yeah, mom's
There's mom
having
again.
her thing where she has
Yeah.
problems. And I
Yeah.
I feel like it was helpful, and I do think we should be honest with our kids about, "We're struggling with something," or, "This is really hard for me, I need to take a break," or because we want them to
Yeah.
do that too. I used to tell kids well, I tell them that still now, but in the school system, I remember as a school counselor, they would come to my office and complain about fights with their parents or something, and I would say, and they would say that they'd said mean things or broke things or whatever during this fight, and I said, "Well, have you ever just taken a break and said, I just need to take a break right now so that some of those things don't get said or you don't do some of those things?" And they said, "Well, my parent says, don't you walk away from me while I'm talking to you." And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, we need to, educate parents too
Yeah.
that walking
Yeah.
away, especially if you're asking in a respectful way, I need to take a break right now. I need to go for a walk. I need to go to my room. I need to whatever is okay because that's how they're regulating themselves." And so I think that's something that parents maybe I always felt like they needed education on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, because they do. They get into the heat of the moment, and we have a hard time stopping when we're in the heat of the moment.
Mhm.
So one of the things I really work on with parents when we start together is that it's all in the planning.
Mm.
So if you've got a parent that is just losing their temper, but they're willing to work with this. It's like, what is your plan when you get into these conflicts? How are you going to, what are the steps that you're going to go through when you're there? Because the more you can, if you're having a screaming match with your, you know, being the adult and saying, wait, this isn't what we want to do. This isn't where we want to go. And backing off. And it works in so many situations. I had a parent that was just so frustrated with her teens because they'd go out for the night and then they'd get a call at 11:30 at night, come pick me up.
Mm.
And she was so frustrated. I'm like, why don't you set all of this up before the event happens? You have a plan. So, and to also put it into your team's hands. This is what you get to do. If you're going to go out tonight, you get to figure out who's going to get you there,
Hmm.
what time you're going to be home, and who's going to bring you home. Or if you need me to come get you, you tell what time is it right now. So that you don't
Hmm.
have all those frustrating moments when
Hmm.
you're in that moment that it turns up into a mess.
Hmm.
So the more you can plan out and work out these situations, maybe take a list. What are those frustrating moments that you have with your teen? And walk through, how do we start handling these things now when the emotion isn't there? So you're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, this is where we go. This is how we work.
Mhm. Oh, that's perfect because I do the same thing with my clients about making a plan for anxiety when they're totally calm and everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because then when they get into that panic or anxiety time, when their brain starts shutting down, then they're still able to access this plan that we created, even if,
Yeah,
because if you're just trying to come up with steps all of a sudden when you are in anxiety, panic, anger, frustration, all of that, like that thinking part of your brain doesn't work. So I love
yeah,
that you're doing that too with the parents planning ahead. Well, one of my questions was going to be give an example of how a parent changed their behavior that changed the teenager's behavior. And it sounds like that was a good example, one good example anyway, where the parent planned ahead. So then there isn't this frustration and maybe the teen isn't frustrated then
yeah.
because there's a plan in place. So do you have other good
I
examples of
do.
where a parent changes and it changes the teen?
Yeah, like if you're in conflict and you feel like things are raising, really take a moment. Like what I'll do with my kids is, it's like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this. So instead of being in it, it's like, let's go over and say, tell me what's going on with you. First, why, where are we? What is this? But to really let them, one of the things I found with parenting, listening is the
Mhm.
game changer when we really truly start listening to our kids and not making up the next thing we're going to say or the advice we're going to give them. And being in leadership, one of those things is letting them do the talking, giving the reins over to them.
Mhm.
So I especially, one of my leading to the anxiety. I have a daughter. My youngest daughter has had a lot of issues with anxiety, and I spent time and time again where I wanted to fix it. I had to fix it. I'm a
Mhm.
coach. I should be able to fix my daughter.
Yeah.
And it was, as we started working through it, it became, okay, what do you need from me? Who do I
Mhm.
get to be? Who can I be for you so that
Mm.
we do that? And she's like, Mom, I just want you to hold my hand.
Mhm.
And so it's when you're in those moments, get really curious about what they need and what's going on. Because again, what they say is about them, what we hear is about us. So take that out of the equation and let's
Mhm.
put the focus on them and what is it that we can do to support them.
Mm. I love that. Well, it makes me think about the freebie that you have for our audience is that you have some scripts for them to follow. So tell us a little bit about
I
that freebie.
do. I mean, I have the, so it's empowering conversations. There are 10 scripts to connect with your teen.
Mm.
And I did this because they were having there were situations that were happening and parents, they just didn't know how to handle it. So what I did is I wrote this. It's about almost 60 pages
Mm.
of conversations and how you have those conversations. And it's funny because I tested it and I gave it to a couple teens and they're like, no, this is not the conversation. So they helped me, they supported me as I actually built this. So it sounded like something that was very authentic.
Mhm.
And, conversation on social media is one of them.
Mm.
When you don't want your kids on social media, how do you have that conversation? Dealing with failure, helping them with failure or rejection, engaging with your teen when all they do is give you a one-word response.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, I remember that
Right?
so well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Screen time, handling academic pressure, because that's such a
Mm.
huge thing. Handling disrespectful behavior. Chores. How do you get your kids to do chores? What's
Yeah.
that like? High emotion conversations, curfews, and then peer pressure. Those
Mm.
are the different scripts that it kind of walks you through what are the main purposes, what are the goal of those conversations, and then it kind of gives you an outline of what that conversation can look like from the empowered parent mindset.
I love that. Now, if their relationship with their teen has been off kilter, off the rails, a mess for a long time, I'm sure there is some time that needs to, I mean, they have to kind of build a trust and
Yeah,
a way for them, like, they're gonna have to do maybe some smaller things or just spending time without talking about anything with something that their teen probably enjoys to kinda get that going so that they can have some of these conversations, I'm guessing.
absolutely, absolutely. Being present, not just
Mhm.
being with them, but being present.
Mhm.
With as my kids look back for me when I was a work, I was an entrepreneur when they were very young age, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And
Mhm.
they would say to me, they were like, "Mom, yeah, yeah, you were always there, but you weren't present."
Yeah.
So that's the one thing they want. They want your full attention.
Mhm.
So what you want to do is if you can, spend 5 minutes a day just chatting with them, just being, and if they're ignoring you, say they're playing a video game, then just be in the room, but not be reading or sitting on your phone, but be present where you're watching what they're doing, where you're
Mhm.
showing interest in who
Mhm.
they are. That will take them just light years, just showing them that you're interested, because that's typically what happens when you start having, when the relationship starts going bad. You're not listening to them, you're not understanding them, they're not being seen, heard, or valued.
Mhm.
So start doing that. I always recommend, hey, even once, if you can take them out to lunch like once a month, or
Mhm.
go on a hike with them so you have that uninterrupted time where you're not on your phone,
Mhm.
because if you're going to be on your phone, we all get mad at our kids for being on their phones, but then we go do the same behavior.
Right.
And so show them that you really are focused on your relationship with them, and
Mhm.
it'll happen.
Mhm. I used to like to watch my kids play video games because I was terrible at them and I could never get to the next level.
Yeah, here
So I
too.
was like, "Oh, what happens in the next level? I wanna see because you can figure it out." And they would
Yeah.
tell me, sometimes I'd say, "Well, what's this character doing? And what's your mission? Or what are you supposed to be picking up?" Or, because I like the puzzle part or like it's almost like the mystery of the video game, like what's their mission? What are they supposed to be doing? And even though I
Hmm.
was never good at them and probably wouldn't have wanted to play. I did like video games, but not the ones they liked. I probably wouldn't have wanted to play them, but it was fun to watch them, and it was a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they really enjoyed telling me the story about what was happening in the game, so that can really work. So you are a parent coach, so how do
Yes.
parents find you and get in touch with you? How do they learn to work with you?
So my site is Raising Remarkable Kids. And you can go out there, and that's where you can also get the script is out there. You can reach out to me, you can contact me, even if you just want to, like do just a discovery call to find out more. I'm on Instagram, Raising Remarkable Kids. I've got a Facebook group out there. And yeah, just reach out and either DM me or through my website. And I'd love to just chat with you and see, what are your challenges. I am a stand for the kids. It's, the more my mission is really to change the trajectory of parenting generationally.
Mm,
So if we raise our kids to be confident, connected, compassionate, they're going to pass that on to your grandkids. And
mhm,
they're, so this changes generations. And so it's such a beautiful thing when we can all really feel valued.
mhm. I love that so much. Well, thank you for Mary Kay for being with us. This is so needed, and definitely please reach out to her and see how she can help you with these conversations and relationships with your teens because it's so important.
Mm. It is, and it's so rewarding when
Mhm,
the relationship I now have with my kids, where especially as a teen, if you can get them to the point that you are the first person that they come to when something's going wrong, that you're there to support them through whatever the issue might be, it's it's gold. It just
mhm,
and now that my kids are young adults, that's the relationship we have together, and it's just
mhm.
incredible, just
Yes.
incredible.
I know. I enjoy my adult children, and I probably enjoy them because I enjoyed them when they were teens.
And yeah,
Thank you for being
love
with
it.
us.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.